How's it going, Scott?
Good. How you guys doing?
Good.
So, Bobby, I did my first listing presentation with my iPad, and it was one person, so it was really easy to sit next to him. But when showing them the comps, because we were comping it out, he just had a harder time seeing it. So because they're so small, so it's only I have to learn how to enlarge it so they can see it. I have the iPad 12.9 Pro, so that was the only thing where I found that maybe I should print those. But it was good to be able to pick the properties with him, like you do, to find it. So
yeah, and what I usually do is when I pick the property, pictures tell 1,000 words. So on MLS, I'll go through the pictures before I even go through the data.
Okay.
So I'll open the pictures and we'll literally swipe through each picture of the comparables. We're like, oh, this has a better kitchen than yours. Oh, this has this. This has that. Oh, you got a better deck. He doesn't have a deck,
Okay.
So I'll just go through the pictures because I feel like they relate more to that than anything else.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate that. But I wanted to say thank you.
Are you guys all training to use an iPad versus a flip book?
I'm on Mac, so that's
yeah, me too.
A flip book is a book that I flip. It's not a computer.
Yeah.
So when I say are you suggesting that you use an iPad versus paper?
Yeah.
Well, so for our agents we have both, but I personally use the iPad. Everything's on the iPad, and I believe Scott does the same.
Yeah.
I'll give you free advice, and it's worth exactly what you paid for it. I always just used a flip book. And the reason I did was because the battery never dies. I never have a tech issue. It was really got to the point when I did listing presentations, by the way, I don't like to sit next to somebody because I never, ever, ever sit in between two people. You know why you don't want to sit in between two people? Anybody thoughts? Yeah, I spent 45 minutes telling them no. Literally. I mean, I know that seems crazy, but literally, if you got people over here and you're here, you're spending the entire time saying no, 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 no. And it's not a conscious thing, but they're hearing no, whether you want them to or not. So, a lot of people use iPads, so I understand, or some version, a Galaxy, what a lot of people do. I was just kind of curious where you guys were at on that.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know how to use on the iPad.
I don't know. And I'll be honest, I love just having a book. I had that book. It was in a binder and it had all the pages printed out. It was the same as it would look at an iPad.
Waiting.
Yeah. Mine sat in my car. The only time it left my car was to go from my car to that house, and then it went back in my car. That way I never forgot it. I always knew where it was. And I wouldn't do that with a computer, obviously, because you got to, weather and you've got to charge it and different things like that. So that was just my philosophy. It's not right or wrong. And I definitely wouldn't die on that hill. It's just a thought.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you put your contact information in the chat? I'd like to reach out to you and set up a time. Maybe you and I can spend a little bit of time together.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, looks like we got some people coming in. I'm assuming Isaiah's coming in this morning. Is that accurate?
Okay. He might be jumping on. I do not know for sure.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get started and let's just I'm just going to start out with some general stuff. Isaiah and I have had some stuff that we want to talk about, but I'll wait and see if he shows up for that. But if not, if you guys have any general questions, any thoughts, anything that that's giving you concern out there, or that we can kind of mastermind around this morning, because that's really what this is about. It's not necessarily about me or Isaiah or anybody else just talking for 45 minutes, but it's really about, interacting and see what's working for people and, best practices and stuff like that. So anybody have a subject that they're struggling with or just wanted to talk about?
So I guess it's on teamwork. So I just moved over to EXP, and obviously they're real big on recruiting. And I was just wondering how you make the approach to realtors that you know. So what would be, should you do a call, email, or just ask them out to go coffee and just discuss, just to meet with them and just catch up with them and then walk into what you're doing? So.
Yeah, a couple of things. So recruiting is a very interesting thing. Obviously at EXP, it's a big deal. EXP, Real, KW, those are all very big recruiting organizations. I recruit pretty heavily for my team, so I get that as well. So I just want to introduce a concept because I think a lot of people skip, in my opinion, what's step one. So the concept is pretend that you open up a bank account today and put $1 in that bank account. I'm going to ask a really stupid question. How much money can you take out of that bank account?
99 cents.
There you go. You got to leave some. Yeah. $1.99, however you want to look at it. So what we try and do at recruiting a lot of times is we open up bank accounts and try and over withdraw them. And what I mean by that is I come up to you and Scott, you and I have known each other for 12 seconds now. I mean, you and I have had, but right. I don't know you. Hey, EXP is great. You should come to EXP. Like, really? So, I'm a big fan of the law of reciprocity. And here's what I mean by that. When I give you something, you're very likely to feel indebted to me, and you're very likely to give something back to me. So what do I do with people? So I'm got a list of 200 people we're trying to recruit right now. In that list, we do a lot of stuff with them. So we put them on drips and give them free information. So, just stuff about being a realtor, so we're going to send videos to them. We're going to send emails to them. We're going to retarget them through Facebook. Theoretically, by the time I actually physically pick up the phone to talk to them, they know who I am. And it's not like, oh, who's this Brian guy who keeps harassing me all the time? So that's part of it. And then also, follow them on social media, become friends with them on social media, congratulate them when they have closings. Like, here's something that my coach said over and over again. If you congratulate somebody on closing, think of how much better that is than what their broker did, because their broker did nothing. So social media is a very powerful tool. Make sure you're friends with people, make sure you're commenting on their posts, make sure you're interacting with them. So you build that, you're putting deposits in the bank. That's the analogy. And so now I can go make a withdrawal. And I wouldn't sit down with somebody and say, hey, this is Scott, and I just thought I wanted to tell you about how awesome EXP is. What I would say is, hey, this is Scott with EXP, or do you have a team?
I work under Lee, but we're in different states.
But you don't have a team that you run and that's fine. I'm just wanting to make sure we're having the same conversation. So, you're going to say, hey, I'm Scott with EXP, and I'm just reaching out to people. And I was just wondering if you'd be interested in sitting down and having a conversation about your business. And the idea is you go and bring them value, not you go and recruit them. Right. So that's probably the key to it, is just, following them around, making yourself known, and it's a process. Now you can cold call people. That works. And you'll get some people. I use a company called Smart Setter to cold call for me, and they set appointments, and they'll set probably 12 to 15 appointments a month for me. So you might want to look into them. If you want me to connect you, I'm happy to do so. They're a decent company. The appointments aren't always great, but I've recruited, I don't know, in the last year, I probably recruited 15 to 20 agents through that.
Okay. Very good.
So
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else have any questions about recruiting?
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
What was the name again?
Smart Setter.
Smart Setter. Okay.
Yeah. And again, if you want, anybody who wants to be a connection with them, just put your information in the chat, and I'll do a 3-way conversation.
Well, do you want me to be with a different agency? Which agency you want? Yeah, right.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to chat about, or any other thoughts on recruiting? You guys, you just want to listen to me talk for 45 minutes today.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Okay. And again, I'm seeing a lot of, I don't see a lot of cameras, but if you're here, we would love to see your smiling face. It helps with the interaction. So, we would love you if you do that, if you turn your camera on, but if not, I can just talk about some of the stuff that, we've talked about. This mastermind, generally speaking, is for people who are looking to build teams or already have a team and that type of stuff. So, one of the things that Isaiah thought, not camera ready. I don't know what that means but I don't know what not camera ready means. If you're clothed, you're camera ready as far as I'm concerned. But otherwise, I agree. I don't want to see anyone naked. That'd be a little bit.
Not camera ready is like me getting ready still.
You're fine. I don't have enough energy to judge how anybody else looks. So
You look fine, Michelle.
It's a hat.
You always look good.
Yeah, you look fabulous, Michelle. All right. So with that in mind, so one of the things that Isaiah wanted to talk about, and I think it's a really good subject, is what happens as you transition out of being a full-time producing agent into being a person who is running a team and as a team leader, and what's some of the downfalls. So those of you who have done this before, I'd love to hear some downfalls from you. I'll share some of the ones that I've got and some of the things that I've learned. Anybody had some experience where they went and they're, not being a full-time agent anymore as far as that's their main income, but kind of flipping that so that, the team has become their main source of income. Is that true for anybody on here, or is anyone even headed in that direction, I guess? Okay.
Maybe Bobby.
Can I be like just candid?
Please.
Yeah, no. So I log in every Friday, and this is great information, but I feel like for me it's like for future, because I'm not even near the level of building an organization like you guys. Now I am EXP, so I am slowly, attracting agents one by one, but yeah, so I feel like this mastermind, maybe it might be a little advanced for me right now. Just listen to the stuff you guys are talking about as far as building teams and structuring and.
So let me say this, Michelle, and thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. Give us something you want to talk about, because I'm happy to talk about anything. I bring a subject because Isaiah and I said, hey, maybe this is something we'll talk about. But truth be told, in my mind, this is a mastermind. I'd rather we just go back and forth. You guys talk about problems, opportunities, frustrations, and then we can help solve for those based on where you guys are at your business versus me coming up. And again, to me, that's the difference between a training and a mastermind. A training, I would come and I'd have PowerPoint slides and I'd say, this is what we're going to talk about there. We're going to talk about this and this and this and this and this. And I'm happy to do that. That being said, I'd much rather on this call have a conversation. So, what kind of things do y'all are on some version? You're either agents who are out there in production, you're team leaders who are not in production, or you're someplace in between. That's why you're here. So by all means, give me something you guys want to talk about. I promise there's a real good chance that I've seen it. So happy to chat about any of that.
I have some negative feedback from
Bring it.
sellers that don't want to work with my brokerage firm.
Okay.
I actually have 2 listings from Z Buyer that were over $1 million listings, but the prior experience they had with Remax, not from our brokerage firm, my brokerage firm, but different ones. And I went to my broker and I asked him how I can handle this. And he said that he would talk to them to see, what kind of bad experience that they can make better for us in the future with them, see if they would come aboard or farm out give a referral for those two to non-Remax agents, which I'm with Remax. And I'm not sure how to handle it. Is there a different way maybe I can approach them when they say that to me?
So the first thing is there's in my world, when people say something negative to me, there's 2 things that falls into it. It's either an objection or a condition. So a condition would be, probably not applicable here, but if, for example, here's a condition with a buyer. I have $3 in my bank account. I can't afford to make a down payment. That's a condition. Like, I can't overcome that. You're going to need some money to buy a house, or my credit score is 400 and I don't have cash. Those are conditions. And so we're going to have to deal with some of these. This feels like an objection to me. So when I have somebody say, I would never work with Remax again, what I look at that as a high level objection. In other words, that's a thing that's way up here. And from an NLP standpoint, it's chunked way up, because that's a very overwhelming or overarching thing. So generally speaking, when people give us objections that are way up here, we want to get down here. In other words, we want to understand this at a much better level. So here's a great question. So first of all, anytime I handle an objection, I start with, it's funny, I was teaching this morning, so it's a great caveat. I appreciate you asking this question, Darlene. So step one of objection handling for me is repeat and affirm. And what does that mean? So, I don't want to work with Remax agent. I don't care how good they, well, I understand. I've heard some people have some pretty negative experiences with some of the agents at Remax. So, and I don't know that I know off the top of my head, but this happened to me when I joined Keller Williams. Literally the very first listing appointment I went on when I went to Keller Williams, it was the same objection, Darlene, was I'm not working with a KW agent. And full disclosure, I still lost, but I tried and I feel like I got close. But step one is repeat and affirm. In other words, hey, absolutely, I understand. Not everybody loves Remax. And, there's some good agents at Remax and some bad agents at Remax. Let me ask you this, and this is the term that you're going to want to use in this situation when you're trying to go from high level to low level, is what specifically about working with Remax was a negative experience for you? So it's what specifically, because now I can't just say, I don't like Remax. I don't like the color of the sign. I don't like the balloons. Well, that's ridiculous. That's not a real objection. That's just someone making some stuff up. So what specifically was your experience with working with Remax? And what we're trying to do is give them to talk to us about something that hopefully we can cover, because this big it's kind of like, I want to think about it. In essence, what we're asking them the short term is, well, great. Well, what specifically are you and you think about? Because I want to make sure I can provide information for you. So did you ask something along those lines, Darlene?
I tried to, but they just didn't want to even talk with me.
And this was at a listing appointment or on the phone?
I had a listing appointment scheduled. And when I went to confirm the day before, in my text message, I put Remax competitive edge. And he replied back, "You're with Remax?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I'm canceling the appointment." So okay. That's when he texted me back. He says, "I had a bad experience with Remax and I don't want to work with you." And he never responded back to me.
And you can't overcome an objection if no one will talk to you. None of us are that good. But again, if we go, hopefully theoretically, what we would be able to do is have a conversation with somebody and break that down. Out of curiosity, what specifically happened that made you clearly offended by Remax? And if you don't mind, let me know what that was. Well, Remax and yeah, go ahead.
I know when I was doing my research and doing my comparables and stuff, I noticed that there was, when he purchased his home, it was both a listing agent and his buyer's agent was with Remax. So I don't know where it happened, if it was on the listing side or the buyer's side, but I tried to figure it out, but it just never materialized. So my broker is supposedly going to be trying to get in contact with him from a higher up, supposedly, and see what we can try and do for him. And if he does not do anything, like I said, he's going to refer it out to another non-Remax agent. So maybe we can work something out that way.
Yeah. And again, if you can talk to them, it's about breaking down that objection, figuring out where it was. And then a couple of things that I would do in this scenario, assuming that I could have a conversation with that person, and it might be like something like this: Darlene, I appreciate, I'm sorry that agent was unprofessional and disorganized. I can tell you right now, Remax has 150,000 agents, whatever the number is. I don't know what it is, but it's a pretty darn big number. And in every big organizations, there's going to be some people who are unfortunately going to be not great. And I would hope that at least you would sit and talk to me. And because I'm an individual and every single person at Remax is an independent contractor, we just have to have someplace to legally hang our license via the real estate commission. So yeah. I appreciate that you've had a bad experience. I'll just ask you this. Would you be willing to spend 30 minutes with me, find out if you like me, find out if you trust me? Because I can tell you this, the name on the sign of the brokerage is not what sells your house. It's the agent. So that's where I'd want to focus. And then if I actually got the opportunity to sit with them, you know, because this can happen sometimes in person. Like, for example, if you hadn't verified that, this might have been an objection that happens in person. I might even say this in this market. I'll tell you what, Mr. Seller person, I understand that you had a bad experience. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do is set that aside for just a short period of time and evaluate me, not the company that I happen to hang my license with. And here's what I mean by that. I will offer you this. I will list your house for 2 weeks. And if I don't get you a satisfactory offer within those 2 weeks, I'll come pick up my sign in my lockbox and you lose absolutely nothing. I'll have lost money on marketing. I'll have lost money on getting the pictures taken. I am confident that we can work together, and I am willing to risk that probably $1,000 that's going to cost me in that first 2 weeks if you're willing to take a risk on me. So those are things that you can potentially do for someone who wants to get rid of you, someone who wants to fire you. You can just talk about, hey, just why don't we try this for 2 weeks and no risk to you whatsoever. Okay. That's another way to potentially go.
I like the that it's not the part where you were just saying it's not the sign in front of the house, it's the agent. I like that approach too. That might work with me. And then trying to be more specific on the outcome they had prior to me approaching them.
Yeah, because who knows? I mean, maybe the person lied to them, maybe, you know, and I know he's not the CEO anymore, but I could say this, you know, Adam Contos did not send people out here to lie to people. You know, he's the CEO of our company. He's not anymore. I don't know who it is now, but, you know, I know Adam, that's why I'm using his name, but you know, there's 150, I think there's about 150,000 agents at Remax. Is that true? Or am I making that number?
Yeah, there's quite a bit, and I see them coming and going.
Well, right. I mean, you know, since the advent,
I've been with them since the day one. So
awesome. That's great.
I'm loyal.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Somebody, Diane, what is the best company for calling leads? How much? Diane, would you address what specifically you're referring to there? Are you talking about calling recruits? Are you talking about using an ISA? What specifically are you referring to? Diane don't want to tell me. Okay, well, put it in the chat if you get a chance, Diane. Z-Buyer and Geo Leads. Who's the best company to call that person? There's lots of companies out there that you can do that with. Depends on the level you want to do with it. So I work with a company called Power ISA. They're out of Mexico, and I'd be happy to refer anybody to that company. I also use a company called Sphere Rocket that you can get virtual assistants from. And again, I'd be happy to refer that company out as well. But this is my experience. And Isaiah has and I thank you, Scott, appreciate that. You can get a ISA team right through Ren. So, and let me tell you why I would probably do that. Not because I'm involved with Ren, but because the other people I hired before I was involved with Ren. And one of the things that I like about working directly with Isaiah's people is they understand the program. They're being trained by Isaiah. They're being trained by the staff. They understand what that lead is. And, you know, when you go hire an outside company for an ISA, one of the delusions that I personally had was, and I've hired probably 4 outside companies to do this for me in the past. I was under the impression that there was a great leader at that company and they were coaching and training and role playing. And that was what I found out was pretty much delusion. So now, I believe that Isaiah is trying to offer a higher quality product. And because of that, if you work with Ren, I feel like you're going to get, you'll get better results. And I also feel like if you have a concern as a Ren client overall, they're very vested, not just in you working with their ISAs, but you having success inside of their system. And so it's much more, your feedback will be received at a better level, I believe. If you're going to hire an ISA that's not through Ren, one of the things I will say, you're going to have to coach and train and role play with that person. In other words, if I was having an ISA today that I hired, I would role play with them a minimum of twice a week, because no one else is training them on how to answer these questions, how to be efficient with these people, how to go through this. And if you don't role play with them, if you don't coach and train them, you're basically getting a person who's dialing and hoping. And dialing and hoping works on some level. It's just not very effective. So, Z-Buyer, by the way, does everybody have a script that they're using for that? Because that was one of the things that Diane put in there. Anybody have a script that they're using for a Z-Buyer if you're calling Z-Buyer leads? Is anybody calling Z-Buyer leads?
Hey, I call the Z-Buyer leads, and
what's your script?
I don't have one. So what happens, it kind of goes like, they answer the phone and I say, hi, I'm Diane. I'm with Coldwell Banker. I'm a local real estate agent. And they kind of hesitate. And I said, well, you know, inventory is low. And I wanted to know if you were interested in knowing the worth of your home and possibly even selling it. And then I just wait. And so usually they'll say yes or no. And sometimes if they kind of hesitate, I'll say, you clicked a link and I just want to see if I could help you. And they'll tell me usually that they were just thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, where are you going? And I just try and have a conversation. And so it's been pretty good.
And what do you say is pretty good? What would you say your success level is with those?
I'm not consistent. Don't be mad at me.
I'm
So I have a listing appointment on Monday. I think I'm with, I don't remember how long, 6 months. And I think I have 4 houses that I sold.
Okay.
And one, I dropped the ball. I made the mistake on it. So they ended up going with somebody else and that's fine. But it's my problem is consistency and everything else that I jam into my schedule. So I can't always like call every day. Like I see the schedule and I'm like, I'm not ready for, 9 to noon making phone calls, but I would probably be wildly successful, which is why I ask about someone else actually doing it.
Oh, so, okay. Sorry, Diane. I didn't put that together that you were the person who asked about it. Yes, I would say that. And I'll ask you this and I'll challenge everybody. So if you don't have do you have an hour a day that you can make phone calls for?
Sure. I mean, I guess it's just what you choose to do in a day. So right now I was cleaning, I'm getting ready. I have a showing. I wrote 3 contracts on Monday and didn't get any of them. I wrote 1 contract on Tuesday and got it. And then it took me until yesterday to finally firm everything up. And yesterday I wrote another contract and didn't get it. So, and when I'm done here and they're cleaning my house, I'm going to put some makeup on so I don't look like this. And I have a showing. And then I have to pick my daughter up from school. So yes and no. You know what I mean? Like, do I have an hour? I do. What do I do every day? Today's not going to be a day of calling. I just don't have it.
So what I would say to everybody, and you can take this for what it's worth, I would focus on I would rather see someone call for an hour 5 days a week than call 5 hours one day or 3 hours one day. The reason being is you'll be able to follow up more consistently with people, and the fortune is in the follow-up, especially if you're lead generating on the seller side. Lead generating on the seller side is all about follow-up, because you don't get a lot of people who call you and say, hey, I want to list my house this afternoon. You get plenty of buyers who come in and say, hey, I want to go look at some houses. I want to go look at some houses. So I would say that consistency is more important than actual amount of time. So take that for what it's worth. I feel like most of us can probably find an hour. And I'm not saying there's not going to be days where you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you'll work until 8 o'clock at night and you didn't have 5 minutes. That does happen. But make sure that you're doing the things that are making you money. And For me, if I was to go back in production today, the very first person that I would hire an outside transaction coordinator if I was a single agent. So that would be somebody who I'm paying per transaction, because you don't necessarily need to do that. But the second person I hire would be a showing partner. I would have somebody who goes and shows property for me. And the reason being, plain and simple, is kind of what Diane was talking about. Sounds like she's going to spend a great portion of her day to day out showing property. That's a relatively high dollar per hour activity. That being said, you can pay someone very little money and get that done. And there's your opportunity to go and get some more buyers or sellers. So take that for what it's worth. And I'd be happy to talk about what that model looks like and how different ways to do it. But getting someone to show property for you, to me, is the number one leverage piece that we can create if we're busy. Now, if you're watching Wheel of Fortune for 6 hours a day and showing houses for an hour, you probably don't need a showing partner. I'm exaggerating. I'm sure none of y'all are doing that. But, if you're working 8, 12, 15 hours a day and you're going, I don't have time to lead generate, I don't have time to do database management, I don't have time to follow up with my sphere and my past clients, you need a showing partner. Because if you think about this, statistically speaking, when I shake a buyer's hand for the very first time, I've got 16 hours of work from that point forward to get to closing. That's a lot of time. The flip side to that is if I shake a seller's hand who agrees to work with me, I only have 4. So it literally takes 4 times the amount of energy, physical time to close a seller than it does a buyer. So do that. But let me talk about Z-Buyer scripts. So a couple of things. First of all, intent. Now, if somebody comes in and says through Z-Buyer and they say that they want to just get a home valuation, then speak to that home valuation. Hey, this is Brian Curtis with Curtis Realty Group. I'm following up with you today because you requested a home valuation. If you don't mind, I wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions so I can make sure that I get as accurate as possible. So that's the script I'm going to use if they're asking for a home valuation. If the majority of Z buyers that I've called have called in basically on the cash offer, they want to get a cash offer for their house. If you get that person, this is the script I use. Hey, this is Brian with Curtis Realty Group. I'm reaching out today because you made an inquiry about getting a cash offer on your house. I've got several investors who would love to give you a cash offer on your house. With that in mind, I have time to come over and take a look and give you an idea on price, both on Tuesday or Wednesday. Which of those days works better for you? My goal is to get in front of that person because they've literally asked for a cash offer. And I want to speak to their call to action. And, if the call to action was, I want someone to buy my house, that's what I'm going to do. And by the way, if you don't have an investor, they're super easy to find. So, or you can be an investor yourself. I've trained plenty of agents who say, well, I'll be the investor. Great. So I go over there and I do exactly what I said I was going to do. In other words, I said I was coming over to give them a valuation of their property to see how much our investor would offer. So I'll go over there and say the house is worth $400,000. I use a 70% rule for my investors. And so I would say, hey, your house is worth approximately $400,000. Our investor will give you approximately $280,000. How do you feel about that? 95% of the time, they don't feel so good about it. They're like, no, why would I, you told me my house was worth $400,000. Why would I take 280? At which point in time I say, well, I understand, I don't mean to insult you, but understand that my investor is trying to make money. So they're not going to buy a property at market value. They buy properties under market value. Sometimes they fix them up. Sometimes they do different things to them, but ultimately it's a business for them. So let me just say this. I did mention on the phone that I was a real estate agent and I brought all my information about what I did. I'd be happy to sit down for 15 minutes with you and show you what I can do for you to get market value of your house. So is now a good time for us to do that? 9 times out of 10, they will sit down with you at the table or wherever, and allow you to do a listing presentation. And I want to say that if we went on 10 of those, we listed between, 3 and 6 of them, depending on, the quality of the lead. Sometimes they were just garbage. Sometimes they weren't interested at all. But if they were interested at all in selling their house, we flip that investor appointment directly into a listing appointment. And it goes pretty smooth because, again, you say, look, I understand, but I'd be happy to help you get market value. Great. Show me how to do that. And, when you tell them their house is worth 400 and they might get excited about it. Sometimes they don't. And we've had investors buy houses that way too. So there's another lead source called Fast Home Offer that is much, much more expensive than Z-Buyer. but they give you direct leads that are, again, looking for a cash offer. We probably close 3 out of 10 of those. If you're going to do those type of leads, make sure your return on investment's there, because they're much more expensive. I think I pay about $300 a lead for those. So they're pretty expensive as far as lead goes, but they can convert at a pretty high level. So Scott.
I have a hard time just getting to the house. They just say, well, I just want an offer. And then I'll say, well, I need to see the house. And they say, well, why can't you just give me an offer? And that's one of the objections. They won't even let me come over.
On ZBuyer?
On ZBuyer, yeah.
So I would probably go back to my objection handling and say, okay, Scott, I completely appreciate that. I understand that you would just like an offer, and that sounds like you're looking for convenience. Is that what we're talking about? And yes or no, they would say there. Role play this with me. So it sounds like maybe you're just looking for convenience and be done with your house as quickly as possible.
Correct. I just
absolutely
want you to come and buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, Scott. If you'd like, I can get you an offer sight unseen. You're probably not going to like it, if I had to be honest with it. So, it's probably going to be 15 to 20% less than I would get you if I came over and looked in person. And here's why: because my investor is not going to buy something sight unseen at market value, because they don't know what they're getting into. And think about this. The last time you went and bought a pair of shoes, you might buy a pair of shoes online, you might buy a pair of pants online, but let me ask you this: are you going to buy something for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 sight unseen? I appreciate that that you'd want me to, but I don't have any investors who are willing to shell out that kind of money and not actually take a look at the house. So again, if you want, I can go back to my investor, and get a sight unseen offer, but realistically, it's going to be a lot lower. So with that in mind, would you prefer I do that, or would you like me to just come over and spend 15 minutes and give you an offer that, might be a little bit more realistic?
Okay, thanks.
So that's probably where I'd go on that. And here's the thing, honestly, Scott, that's probably an objection that they really just don't want to sell their house. I don't know that, but most people aren't dumb. Yeah, just write me a $400,000 check for something I've never seen. No problem. Let me just write that out and get it. Bring it over to you this afternoon. That's, I know that there are people out there who are crazy who think like that, but I'm going to guess they're few and far between. So, all right.
Hey, this is Chrissy.
Hey, Chrissy.
Chrissy. Hi. I was just thinking on ZBuyers, when I've made the calls, I've had similar situation where they're just like, oh, I'm just looking. And I get shut down pretty quick, and I try to keep them talking. So, but I also am on Ren Nexus. Sorry, all of a sudden my throat went weird. Where I have the inside agents calling. So they're immediately texting and doing drip campaigns. And I don't get a ton of ZBuyer leads because I sat on the fence a little too long, and there wasn't as much to buy at the time. But I've really had no luck at all with ZBuyers, zero. And so that's with ISA calling, the inside sales agents and all of the drip campaigns going. And my calling occasionally, my thought recently has been to just show up at their door and just door knock. What do you think about that?
I love the idea of showing up on someone's house and door knock. If you're going to do that, bring some paperwork with you. And when I'm not even talking about a listing agreement, but I'm talking about comps and, value propositions, things like that. And I think that's great. I'm not saying you're going to get, 2 out of 10 of them to list you. I have no idea. But I also want everyone to take a look at what ZBuyer is. It's a great lead source. I'm not anti ZBuyer. I've used them for probably 6 years. I think it's a great lead source. But also understand, I think we pay $279 a month for ZBuyer. I pay over $300 for every single Zillow lead I get. So I'm just offering some perspective on that. These are not come list me leads all the time. So what you want to look at is return on investment. Obviously, your return on investment is negative now. I can do that math. I know you're spending X number of dollars a month and you've got zero return. So I know that that's not good. But I will say that if you go out and get one, I did the math. If I did one closing a year, I'm positive ROI. So, and the other thing to think about this is, especially the people who are filling out home valuation things, they're saying, I just want to know the value of my home online. That is a top of funnel lead. So all of this goes into, continually following up and following up and following up, and it's building out those nurtures. And the beauty of Ren is that you're going to follow up with these people forever. I can remember, this is prior to me being with Ren, but I can remember one time I followed up with somebody through drips, not ever spoke to them for 3 years. And the truth, if I had to be honest, I didn't even know I was following up with them. The system was doing it. And they called me one day and said, hey, this is so-and-so. And, you've been sending us emails for 3 years. We really appreciate it. We want to buy a house. So it's the idea of the right person saying the right thing at the right time. And the right time is the part that we never get to know. We can be the right person. We know how to do that. We know how to say the right thing. And that's why we go through trainings and coachings. And then it's just a matter of time. And it's building up that funnel. Like, to me, if I can get, 5 to 10 nurtures a month that are going to close sometime in the next 12 months, that's great. And I'm just going to keep putting more of them in the funnel, And then I'm going to look for some more immediate lead sources to pay my bills today. So, for me, often that's buyers. And then it's also, past clients, referrals, working all of it. That's why the system's encompassing, not just this is the one spoke. If you only have one spoke, you might do great, but also you might wake up one day and that spoke is broken. I've had that happen to me. I was in the REO business back during the crash. And I woke up one day and I didn't have any more REO business. And, thank God I had built some other stuff along the way. But, that's the same. The flip side happened to a lot of my competitors back in 2008. They woke up and they had no business at all. And I got in the REO business in 2006. So, it's just one of those things where you got to make sure you have multiple streams of lead sources. And, I would say at a minimum for a single agent, you have 4 legitimate lead sources, because at any point in time, Zillow is I'll tell you a realtor.com story. I had a team I ran in Chicago, and on March 24th of 2019, my realtor.com rep called me and he was very serious, and we had become pretty good friends. So I was like, why are you being so serious? He goes, I have to read this to you. And he literally read this script to me on a recorded line and said, sorry, we're not selling you leads anymore. Well, that team was entirely based on realtor.com leads. So you want to talk about scramble to put something together. That's what we had to do. So, I learned that lesson, the hard way. But you can't count on one lead source, because even though it may be the absolute greatest lead source in the world, it can drive tomorrow. So.
And Brian, can I add one thing to that?
By all means. Thanks, Sean.
So these, Chrissy, these are actually numbers straight from ZBuyer. 72% of all ZBuyer leads convert on a 6 to 12 month cycle. 20% of ZBuyer leads commit within like a 3 to 6 month cycle, and only 8% of their seller leads are typically ready to go within a 90-day cycle. So they are naturally a longer term nurture lead. You do have some leads that pop off right away. Can it happen? Of course. Does it happen all the time? Not necessarily. So the strategy that we usually take is let the prospecting campaign get you in touch with the lead, start to build your relationship with them, figure out when their realistic time frame could be, and then put them on a long-term nurture follow-up campaign like the home seller video drip, because it's okay to get off the phone with them and not get the listing, right? It's okay to say, hey, I know you're not really ready to sell right now. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you some home selling tips. And then if anything ever changes, feel free to reach out to me anytime. They don't need to know that we're going to continue to follow up with them after that. We just need to set the standard like, hey, I'm not going to bombard you. I'm not going to try to pressure you. I'm a consultant and I'm here to help you. And you'll get a lot better responses through that after time, just because you're different than the typical real estate agent that they talk to. And then also master the ZBuyer script. We wrote a script for you guys to use with ZBuyer leads that really does help you get more information out of them. Ask discovery questions like, hey, I know you were looking at getting a value on your home or a potential cash offer. Let me ask you, are you in a position where you need to sell your home fast, or would you rather get the most out of your property? Most of the time, people are going to say, get the most out of my property. And that's where you can go into your value statements about the market conditions, why it's a good time to sell, why they picked a good time. Then discovery questions. It's such a beautiful home. What made you consider, or what made you look into getting a property value on it? Oh, well, my neighbor down the street sold his home for 200 grand, and I think my home's better than his, so I just wanted to see what it was worth. What they're really saying is, if I could get more than what my neighbor got, I might consider selling. So we need to be able to read between the lines sometimes too, in what their actual words are. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. I have another follow-up question to all of that I've been thinking a lot about, and this is probably something I should ask my coach. We've been with you now. We have all the different products. I'm super excited. And what I just thought about this week, and I actually talked about this with Nate, we were going to have another conversation, but streamlining everything in. It's interesting to redefine my role because I'm so used to being not proactive. That's where I am now because of Ren. I'm proactive. I was so used to being reactive. And I'm hearing that a little bit from some of the other people in the group of like, hey, I'm showing houses, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and da, 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 and it's hard to have time. And so now I'm like, delegate, see the beauty of it, see how it all works out. And I love it, and I just show up to my appointments, but what more of a role should I be taking? Should I still be calling on those leads the minute they come in? Or am I trusting in the drip systems and everything that we've put in place to work? And then I'm just, getting in and logging in. Hey, this says for me to call this person today. I need to call that person because, and then, Paul's getting me appointments, which has been fabulous, right? So I've got appointments today because of Paul. So that's wonderful too. So just kind of, I feel like I'm not verbalizing my question as well, but
no, I get what you're saying. You're in a system right now where like you're here and then you've got other agents, right, that are working your leads too. So you're delegating some of those things. And you also have an ISA that's working your leads. Now, ISAs are fantastic because they're able to go in and call through your database and book appointments for you. However, they're not always going to be able to reach the new leads as soon as they come into the system or as soon as an inbound text message comes in. So what I would do is really look at your team and who you have available and who you trust to put in that process, right? Like if you have one agent that's primarily going to work the Z-Buyer leads that come in, then make it their objective to work the new leads as soon as they hit the CRM. Like as soon as they come in, you got to call that Z-Buyer lead, right? Because they can be set up to get notifications for those leads coming in. Then make it a known fact that like if any Z-Buyer lead responds through text message in the system, someone needs to reach out immediately. Like if the prospecting campaign is working, it means that someone responded, right? The campaign's only going to take it to where they respond. It's not going to call them. It's not going to pick up the phone and talk to them. Like you still have to have someone in place that can like really practice that Z-Buyer script and practice working Z-Buyer leads. I'll give you a great example, the Brown team, right? Steve and Christina Brown have been with us for a couple of years now. They have a few agents and a few admins on their team. Well, their son Caleb is primarily working the Z-Buyer leads because he works with a lot of investors. So if they do want a cash offer, he's able to fulfill that. But at the same time, if they want to sell, he's able to list their property. So he's the primary for working the Z-Buyer leads. As they come in, the prospecting campaign is sending out that text. And his goal first thing in the morning is to work the people that have responded through text. And then from there, in his prospecting block, he moves into the rest of the Z-Buyer leads who haven't responded and continues to work those leads. Then once they become like a certain age of lead, they go into their normal follow-up system, which the admins, the ISAs, and the rest of the team are following up with.
That answer your question, Chrissy?
Yeah, that helps a lot. I'm so excited because there's so much that this whole company has to offer. And so it's been so exciting building everything. Now my goal is to start, you know, really streamlining it and maximizing it and using it, right? We got all our videos going. We're trying to get our campaigns going now to maximize it. And so I just appreciate being able to verbalize and work through, like, how do I do that? How do I start that streamline and work smarter, not harder? Be proactive, not reactive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So let me just add on the back of that, and this is for everybody, not necessarily Chrissy. One of the things that I'd love to look at is dollar per hour activities, or DPAs, as I've heard them referred to. And I want you to think about it when you're making a choice: is what's the highest and best use of my time? You know, assuming that you're going to be working. I'm not saying that, you know, I don't want you to do that 24 hours a day and say, I have to work 24 hours a day. Brian said that's the highest and best use of my time. That's not my point. But during working time, you need to make a choice. Is it going to make my company more money for me to sit down and lead generate? Or is it going to make me more money for me to sit down and train my agents how to lead generate? Or is it make more sense for me to go on listing appointments than to work with buyers? You know, and we have to be able to make those decisions all along the way. And that is where you go from having a job, which is what every real estate agent starts out. You can call it anything you want. It's a job. You have you're 100% dependent on yourself. In other words, if you don't show up to work today, you don't make any money. That's a job in my world. But building, and I know not everybody wants to do this, and I'm not telling everybody they should, but ultimately many of us are trying to build to a business. So what does that mean? That means I have to get away from stuff that's not making me money. And I love John Maxwell wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And in that, he says this. He said, if there's anyone in your organization who can do a project 80% as well as you have to, not you should, or it's a good idea, but you have to let them do it. And as many of us who are team leaders and high producing agents, we're control freaks. And the idea of giving any of that control is really, really hard for us. And I see Jennifer smiling. So welcome to the club. You know, I'm part of it. I'm honest about this, but I promise you, learning to delegate this stuff so that you can go and do stuff. There's stuff in real estate that can make you $1,000 an hour. And you're sitting, not you specifically, but the general you is sitting around doing something I can pay somebody $20 an hour to do. Well, that's bad math. So, you know, those are the things that you want to look at. And a great way to do that is take a look at your schedule if you filled it out and go, I spent 3 hours today doing something that's my admin could have done. I spent 3 hours today doing something that somebody else on my team could have done. So those are great ways to figure out how you're spending your time and, you know, what you're doing. I think I talked about this on the very first call that I was on with y'all. Grab a piece of paper and write 200 on one side and 20 on the other, draw a line down the middle and put all the activities that are $200 activities on one side and 20 on the other, and see where you're wasting your time and hire those out. You know, not everybody can afford to hire those out, and that's okay. We'll go bust your butt for the next 90 days and get a little bit of money, then hire it out. So, you know, my philosophy has been, I can do anything for 90 days. I don't love it. I'm not excited about it, but if I got to work 80 hours a week for the next 90 days so that I can have the life I want, then I'll do that. So sometimes we set ourselves up by busting our butt short term so that we can have what we want, and then we can build out a business. So. Awesome. We got about 5 minutes left. Anybody have any other thoughts, questions that we want to talk about this morning? I'll go back to the chat and see if there's anything else in there. Somebody asked about showing partners. Since nobody else, I'm going once, going twice. Okay, showing partners. A couple of things that I would say. If you're at a big brokerage that has a Facebook page, one of the easiest ways to get a showing partner is to go into that Facebook page and say, hey, this is Brian, just wondering if anybody has availability to show property for me this weekend. One of the easiest ways to get a showing partner. When I was at Keller Williams, we used to do that. And we would literally go in there and probably 10 people, we had about 300 people at the brokerage, about 10 people would pop in and say, oh yeah, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. What that meant for me is all those people needed to be on my team because they had free time on Saturday. So to me, it was also a recruiting opportunity. And also it's a free test drive. If I have you go out and show a piece of property for me and you're horrible at it, then I may not want to try and recruit you as my showing partner long-term or recruit you to my team. But if my client has a great experience and we communicate well, and I might say something like this. So, you know, Bobby, it was great showing. I appreciate you showing that for me today. Are you pretty busy or is your business slow right now? No, my business is really slow. I'll tell you what, I've got plenty of opportunity on my team. Why don't we just sit down and talk about what that would look like? I've got some salary positions where you can have a base salary starting at about 30 grand a year. You probably make about 60 after it's all said and done. And of course, we have straight commission positions that have an unlimited potential. And we'd just love to, spend 30 minutes with you. Worst thing that's going to happen is I'll show you some stuff that we're doing and maybe you can steal it. So I've got time available on Tuesday or Wednesday. Which of those days might work better for you? So that's an easy way to hire a showing partner, is test drive them. Again, if you're at a big brokerage, if you're not at a big brokerage, it becomes a little bit more challenging, but there's people out there, there's groups out there, local real estate groups. Again, I'm not in, I don't know your local markets, but like I know that I'm in a local real estate group right now that I could probably put in there. Hey, I need someone to show property for me. Is anybody interested? And some people probably call me because everybody gets a real estate license is excited, right? I mean, y'all know this story. I got my real estate license. I passed my test. I walk into my broker's office and I go, where are my leads? Oh, they didn't tell me that in real estate school that you don't get any leads and your broker's not going to give you any. And basically I just spent $2,000 to be unemployed. So that's not true for everybody, but that's true for a lot of people. So another thing that if you're looking for that person, go through, get something like Broker Metrics, or in my MLS, I can actually print out, look at all the people who did one deal in the last 6 months. Call that person. Hey, I'm looking for somebody to show property for me. I noticed that you did one transaction in the last 6 months. And I'm just reaching out to everybody who doesn't have big numbers and just seeing if they're looking for an opportunity, or maybe they're just part-time. And anyway, I just wondering, what your deal is. It's a great conversation. No one's going to get angry at you. How dare you call me and offer me an opportunity? You're not, it's not like you're calling a guy doing 100 transactions a year and he's like, I'm too good for you. You've done one transaction in the last 6 months. My guess is you got some time, or you're just planning on being part-time. Questions, thoughts about showing partners? There's, we can, we don't have time to go through it. We can show pay structures and talk about that on a different call if you guys want. But anybody have any short-term questions in the next 2 or 3 minutes before we finish up? Going once, going twice.
I do.
Go,
Sorry.
go.
I'm muting. So, this goes back to like 2 weeks ago when I was here and I chatted with you guys about this, but I think I really need, just for future, like where we're going. And I am excited to hear more about team building, because in my head, that has felt overwhelming to have a team, because me and my business partner are so efficient together and we kill it together. And we have a transaction coordinator and a marketing person, and I have a personal assistant. And I feel like that's all I need. So I would love in future meetings to better understand team building and why I need a better, more efficient team. And I will admit, I think I want to micromanage and control everything, because value experience is so important to me. And not everybody gives the same experience that I give, which doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. It's just my level of like, this is where I want my business at,
It's okay to be better than other people, Chrissy. You're better than some people. I'll just tell you are. I'm okay owning that, by the way. I'm a better real estate agent than some of the agents at my brokerage. I'm definitely a better real estate agent than a whole bunch of people at my board. Own that. That's okay. And I understand we're trying to be humble and all that kind of stuff, but hell, own it. I'm really good at this. I've got a good system. I've got this. And by the way, I want to teach you to be as good as me. Own that stuff. Be confident. Confidence is something that people are drawn to. Like, think about it. If you're interviewing with somebody like, well, I'm not very good, I'm at least average, and I don't want, no one cares. They're like, that's not attractive. So own your stuff. Is the very first thing I'd say to you. But I'll burst your bubble, and that's a good thing. You are not going to find people who are going to care remotely as much as you do. It's your business. You're just going to have to accept that. Because if you're looking for a rock star like you and you find one, I can promise you 90% of the time, this is what will happen. You'll hire that rock star, and for 6 months, you'll be thrilled, and then they'll leave. So what you're looking for is good quality human beings who don't want the stress and the pressure and the financial responsibility and don't want to build a team. They just want to go out, help people buy and sell houses. Those are the people you want on your team. Now, you know, I'm not saying you're never going to run into a rock star. That's going to happen. But if you're trying to build a team of rock stars, that is a great way to go out of business in my mind, because we bring in all these rock stars and they go, I don't need you. I've got this stuff figured out. You know, we're not splitting the atom. So, you know, what we do is not that complex, and a lot of people can pick up on it. So you're looking for average people who are good human beings. They fit your culture, and they are going to go out and represent you in a way that you know, makes you happy. And again, we're going to have to train those people. We're going to have to talk to those people. They're going to screw up. They're going to do stupid things. They're going to say stupid things. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you probably have too, because I know I have. So, you know, there's a process there, and it's about creating leverage for yourself and helping yourself do that. So, and we will be talking more about team building. The people who were on, you know, at the beginning of the call, they all said, we don't want to talk about that today. So we didn't. So that's kind of where we're at. Well, listen, guys, it's 1 minute past. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. If you want to send stuff to Isaiah, if you want to send stuff to me, you can get me on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, whatever. If you have ideas about stuff you want to talk about, bring it before the meeting. It's great. And then we can be prepared. If not, you know, we can mastermind just like we did today. But I hope this was helpful for everybody. Anybody have any final thoughts before I let y'all go? Going once, going twice. See y'all next week.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Welcome.
See you.